We often think of horror as something that lurks outside of us, in haunted houses, in shadowy strangers, in the unknown. But sometimes the most terrifying monsters don't come from the outside at all. They live inside the human mind. Tonight, we're exploring rare and unsettling psychological conditions that blur the line between science and nightmare. At the heart of this journey is Cotard's delusion, a disorder so disturbing that it makes people believe they are already dead. But as we'll see, it's far from the only case where the mind turns against itself. Number 1. Cotard's delusion, the walking corpse syndrome. Imagine waking up one day absolutely convinced that your body no longer contains blood or organs. You might look in the mirror and see yourself, but believe that what's looking back is nothing more than a corpse. This is Cotard's delusion, also chillingly called walking corpse syndrome. First described in the late 1800s by French neurologist Jules Cotard, this syndrome falls into what's known as nihilistic delusions. His most famous patient, referred to only as Mademoiselle X, insisted she had no brain, no chest, no stomach. She believed she couldn't die because she was already dead, and tragically, she starved herself to death after refusing to eat. Modern cases are still documented today. Patients sometimes sit in hospitals insisting their hearts don't beat or that their skin is rotting. Some even ask to be buried. While Cotard's is not a recognized diagnosis on its own, it usually appears alongside severe depression, schizophrenia, or neurological conditions like dementia. Treatment isn't simple. Antidepressants, antipsychotics, even electroconvulsive therapy have been used. Sometimes patients recover. Other times, the delusion is so powerful that reality itself can't break through. Cotard's delusion is frightening because it attacks the very foundation of existence, the certainty that you are alive. Number 2. Capgras delusion, the imposter illusion. If Cotard's delusion tells you you don't exist, Capgras delusion convinces you that the people around you are not who they seem. Picture greeting your mother or your spouse, and suddenly, something feels wrong. They look the same. They sound the same. But your brain whispers, "This is an imposter." First reported in the 1920s, Capgras delusion is most often linked to schizophrenia or brain injury. Neurologists believe it stems from a disconnect between facial recognition and emotional familiarity. In other words, the brain recognizes the face visually, but the emotional response, that deep gut level, "this feels like my loved one," fails to register. The mind tries to make sense of this absence and invents a chilling explanation. That person has been replaced. In Capgras syndrome, you recognize someone, but you don't believe that they're the same person you love and trust. For families, it can be heartbreaking. Imagine your spouse insisting you're a fake, or your child refusing to believe you're really their parent. To them, it's not a fantasy. Number 3. Fregoli delusion. Everyone is the same person. Capgras has a strange twin called the Fregoli delusion. Instead of believing that loved ones have been replaced, patients with Fregoli are convinced that different people are actually one single individual in disguise. The disorder is named after an Italian stage actor, Leopoldo Fregoli, who was famous for his rapid costume changes. People with this delusion often believe they're being stalked by a persecutor who follows them everywhere, constantly changing faces. In addition to the central misidentification, individuals with Fregoli delusion may experience other symptoms. A common feature is the paranoid belief that the person in disguise is following or trying to harm them. Some individuals may also have difficulties with memory, cognitive processing, and recall of events. People with this condition may also cause visual or auditory hallucinations. Like Capgras, it often stems from psychiatric illness or brain damage, but it also carries darker risks: paranoia, aggression, and sometimes violent outbursts. Number 4. Alien hand syndrome, when your hand has a mind of its own. Now imagine something even stranger: your own body rebelling against you. In alien hand syndrome, one of your hands moves independently, as if controlled by another mind. There are real, documented cases of people whose rogue hand unbuttons shirts the other hand just buttoned, slaps them across the face, or even tries to strangle them. Neurologists trace this to damage in the brain's motor control systems, especially the corpus callosum, which links the brain's hemispheres. There are 5 types of alien hand syndrome: diagnostic dyspraxia, intermanual conflict, one of your hands acts independently from the other; alien hand sign, you believe that your hand isn't your own; anarchic hand syndrome, your hand performs a task that you have no control over; supernumerary hand, you feel like you have an extra limb; levitating hand, your hand raises on its own without your awareness. The exact cause of AHS is not fully understood, but it is believed to be related to damage or dysfunction in certain areas of the brain, including corpus callosum, which is the thick band of nerve fibers that connects the 2 hemispheres of the brain; the frontal lobe, the area of the brain responsible for planning, organizing, and controlling movements; and the parietal lobe, the area of the brain responsible for processing sensory information, including touch and body awareness. To the patient, it feels like possession. One woman described her left hand as a stranger attached to her body. Horror films couldn't invent something much creepier. Number 4. Foreign accent syndrome, losing your own voice. Sometimes, brain injury doesn't steal your limbs, it steals your voice. Foreign accent syndrome is an extremely rare condition where, after a stroke or trauma, a person suddenly speaks in what sounds like a completely different accent. One woman in the US woke from a migraine speaking with what sounded like a British accent, despite never having lived abroad. Another developed a heavy French accent after a car accident. The perception of a foreign accent is likely to be a case of pareidolia on the part of the listener. Nick Miller, professor of motor speech disorders at Newcastle University, has explained, "The notion that sufferers speak in a foreign language is something that is in the ear of the listener, rather than the mouth of the speaker. It is simply that the rhythm and pronunciation of speech has changed." It's not that the brain suddenly learns a new language, but for the person experiencing it, it can feel like waking up in a stranger's body, unable to sound like themselves ever again. Number 5. Exploding head syndrome, the phantom bomb in the night. You're drifting to sleep when suddenly you hear it, a deafening bang, a gunshot, or the sound of an explosion right inside your skull. You jolt awake in terror, but the world is silent. This is exploding head syndrome. Despite the terrifying name, it doesn't actually cause pain or damage. It's considered a parasomnia, a sleep disorder that occurs during the transition between wake and sleep. The startling nature of the event often causes feelings of fear, anxiety, or distress. Some people also report seeing flashes of light, a phenomenon known as photopsia. Doctors believe it's caused by sudden bursts of neural activity as the brain shuts down for rest. But for the people who live with it, the experience is terrifying. Imagine believing you've just survived some type of explosion, only to realize nothing happened at all. Number 6. The silent twins, a tragic pact. Not all strange mental phenomena are purely neurological. Some grow out of human relationships. June and Jennifer Gibbons, known as the Silent Twins, grew up in Wales in the 1960s and 70s. They spoke to no one but each other, developing their own private language. Their bond was so intense that they mirrored each other's movements, wrote strange stories together, and even committed crimes as a pair. Eventually, they were institutionalized in a psychiatric hospital. In 1993, Jennifer died suddenly from heart inflammation at just 29 years old. Afterward, June seemed to awaken from their shared isolation and began speaking to others, as if the pact between them had finally ended. Their story remains one of the eeriest examples of how the human mind can fuse with another, in ways both creative and destructive. Number 7. Folie à deux. Madness shared by two. The Silent Twins hint at something bigger, the phenomenon known as folie à deux, or madness shared by two. This condition occurs when one person develops a delusion and passes it on to another close companion. The most chilling modern case is that of the Erickson twins in 2008. After bizarre behavior captured on camera in England, including throwing themselves into traffic, surviving, and continuing on foot, one of the sisters later killed a man under circumstances linked to their shared psychosis. It's an unsettling reminder of how tightly reality can bind or unravel between two people. Number 8. Sleep paralysis. The night hag. Perhaps the most universal of these conditions is sleep paralysis. You wake in the night fully conscious, but your body is frozen. A crushing weight presses on your chest, and in the corner of the room, something moves. For centuries, cultures have described this in supernatural terms: demons, witches, night hags. Science now tells us it happens when the body's natural paralysis during REM sleep lingers while the brain wakes up. Hallucinations fill in the blanks, creating visions of shadow people or creatures. Even with this explanation, those who experience it describe it as the most terrifying moment of their lives. Number 9. The Dancing Plague of 1518. Mass madness. And finally, sometimes delusion spreads beyond the individual and takes over entire communities. In Strasbourg in 1518, dozens of people were struck by the uncontrollable urge to dance. They danced in the streets for days, unable to stop, until some collapsed and even died. Historians believe it was a case of mass psychogenic illness fueled by stress, famine, and religious fear, but to the people of the time, it must have looked like possession, or even the end of the world. From the woman convinced she was already dead, to the man who swore his wife had been replaced by an impostor, to entire crowds dancing themselves to death. These are not ghost stories. They are real conditions, real lives, and real tragedies that remind us how fragile the human mind can be. In the end, the scariest monsters aren't always outside our windows. Sometimes, they're inside our heads. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe for more interesting content like this, true crime deep dives, and more. Until next time, please stay safe out there, and as always, stay curious.